Well, if you've ever struggled with your sleep, then you're not going to want to miss this conversation with Diane Dauphinais. She is going to walk us through baby sleep, tween and teen sleep, and then of course, adult sleep. So here we go with Diane. I am so excited to have this conversation with Diane Dauphinais, who is going to really walk us through the ages and stages of life as they relate to our sleep and the importance of sleep. As you know me well enough that sleep is a key tenet of our health, and yet we live in a society that often really undervalues it and poo-poos the idea of getting a good 8 hours every night. Here is Diane to help us understand this topic a lot better. Welcome, Diane.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me today.
I'm so excited to really dig in. I've kind of covered this topic a few times in my work, but I wanted to go deep into the different stages. So we talked before we hit the record button, we talked about the importance of baby sleep and what happens there. And then I want to dig into teenagers and what they need to be doing when it comes to sleep. And then, of course, as adults, what do we need sleep-wise? What are the strategies that you can help us with? What are the tips and the tools, sort of the best of the best that you can offer us so that we can leave today and have a better night's sleep tonight?
Yes, absolutely. It's so exciting. And all stages are so different. So I started out in pediatrics. And then I quickly realized that, clients were coming to me, can you help me with with my teenager? Can you help my spouse with their sleep? And I realized that I was doing a disservice by not being able to help everyone. And I got really curious and how people were sleeping, and talked a lot with families that I was working with. And then just seeing changes as well. We talked a little bit about technology, and that has a role. And then as our body changes and, just life demands sort of change as well, we can often sacrifice our sleep. And the beautiful thing, starting out with newborn sleep is that newborns really do love their sleep, but when we set up that healthy sleep foundation for them, so that healthy sleep can grow from a very early age. Of course, it's very hands-on with lots of help from the parents. We're not leaving babies cry alone, but really tending to their needs while giving them the opportunity to learn in an environment that can allow them to do so.
So Diane, can I just jump in for a second?
Sure.
I know that there are parents watching that have newborns that refuse to sleep, or I know even in my own experience, my own partner, his parents still talk about the fact that he would never sleep, like ever. I mean, if she would get 5 minutes, 10 minutes here or there during the day, like he wouldn't nap, he wouldn't sleep through the night. Are you saying that all babies love their sleep, and it's just that we need to create the right conditions for them to be able to sleep well? Or are there some babies that don't like to sleep at all?
In some cases with like extreme colic or reflux and situations like that, or health, or if a baby is a little bit underweight, you always have to be cautious, but regardless, even in a healthy newborn baby, you have to be cautious and really available to them. But yeah, I continue to be amazed myself at how well a newborn can sleep when there is a bedtime routine in place. Often a newborn will fall asleep when we give them the chance to do so. But again, we talked before hitting record as well, how we adopt these habits of bouncing and rocking, and they get passed down through generations, where some parents are amazed to say, okay, well, we've been doing this bedtime routine for a few nights and they just rolled over and went to sleep. I'm not saying it's that beautiful every time, but just giving them the chance, becoming familiar with where sleep happens, whether you're room sharing or they're in, a crib in a separate room. It doesn't have to be always completely independent of the parents, but, and then just honoring awake windows during the day, and making sure, often we're using props during the day just to make sure that they're getting proper sleep. Naps don't truly evolve well until around 10 to 12 weeks. But by just allowing them to catch up on their daytime sleep, we see that nighttime pattern evolve very quickly, and honoring nighttime feeds as they need them, but doing them in such a way that they can self-wean when they no longer need them.
So you were touching on daytime sleep and napping. So so maybe walk us through the ages. So from 0 months to whatever months, this is how
Sure.
much sleep a baby needs and how they need it. Because from what I understand, I mean, a baby pretty much just sleeps, for the first few months of
Yeah,
life.
well, yeah, often when parents call me too and they're sleep deprived, they say, I thought like sleep like a baby, like that's a complete lie, and my baby doesn't sleep. Newborns, in fact, need 16 to 18 hours of sleep. So that's big, and it's often fragmented at first. So usually when I'm working with a newborn, I've started as early as 7 weeks when I just say we try for a night or two. We don't have any high expectations. If they're ready, then again, the plan is so gentle with newborns that there's no harm in the routines are healthy anyways, even if it's not.
So tell us what that routine would look like.
Yeah, so like a bath is a great place to start. It's just a very familiar cue to the baby's brain. Then by doing it repeatedly every night, that this allows them to wind down, separate daytime from nighttime, and move into sleep. And then making sure all the bedtime routine takes place in where the room that the baby is sleeping in. So not coming back into the living room, not having electronics on, again, not exposing them to, a FaceTime video with the grandparents right before bed, but doing a story or doing a light baby massage or just hanging out with them on a play mat so that they're not overstimulated right before bed. So they have that wind down period. And then just doing like a story or a lullaby with them, diaper change into some nice sleepwear, a sleep sack or swaddle if they're under 12 weeks can be very helpful for sleep, and then placing them down. And again, sometimes you have to walk around the room with them quite a bit, putting them to sleep a little bit more drowsy. So that's when you hear that drowsy but awake is really truthful for the newborn stage.
So what I'm loving is that it's really just about and we're using the word just a lot, and I can hear parents being like, yeah, it's not that easy. And of course it's not. But what I'm really hearing is this idea of routine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I feel like I can already see the foreshadowing to routine, because I know for me as an adult working on my sleep, it's all about that shut down routine at the end of the day. So it really makes me feel like we're just starting out with our babies on a really good foot, setting them up for a lifetime of good sleep habits.
Absolutely. When I start working with adults, we start with a bedtime routine, right? And it doesn't have to be perfectly at 10 o'clock. If an adult is used to going to bed at midnight, I just say, going to bed at 10 might be achievable that first night that you're excited to work on your sleep. But when life throws a curveball and you have a lot to do in the evening, it's going to feel unachievable, and then you won't honor that bedtime routine anymore. So start at, sometimes it's as little as 11:45 or 11:30 so that you can build those long-term sustainable habits, by doing it repeatedly every night. And then once, an earlier time gets comfortable, just starting to move your way backwards from there. But if you're having that bedtime routine in place, your body's allowed to, calm down, relax. You're really calming down your nervous system. So that allows you to fall asleep more easily, stay asleep more easily, so less likely to have those night wakings, and then in fact sleep in, right? So, and that's the same with children when they're overtired, the earlier the better. Even in the beginning, we might have to put them to bed quite a bit earlier if they're faced with a sleep deficit. So in order to start repaying some of that sleep debt, in order for their body to repair their brain as well, we were talking about healthy brain and body show, just making sure that we're taking everything into consideration. So we see babies and children and adults become less irritated, less fussy babies, less crying. They're more confident in their ability to sleep. Like anything, sleep is a skill. So the more we practice it, the better we get at it.
So do you believe that when, we always hear about the fact that when people have babies that they're never going to sleep again until whatever age, is there any truth to that at all? Or are you really feeling as a sleep expert that no, we can start out on the right foot and really get our babies into amazing routines that allow us, the adults, the parents, to get a good night's sleep even with a newborn? Or is that just not possible, and there is going to be a period of sleep deficit when it comes to adults that they just have to live with? And maybe you can provide some strategies for parents who still have to go to meetings and go to work and drive and do things if there is a sleep deficit happening. So tell me what the truth is, and then if there is a truth to, yes, there's a sleep deficit, what can adults do to still be able to function well?
Yes, so absolutely, those first 8 weeks, that's when newborn babies are newborn babies, and you just have to go with their schedule. You have to, I always say, if someone offers to help, say yes, right? My mother-in-law said to me, if they offer, say yes. If they didn't mean it, then they shouldn't have offered in the first place. Right? By my second child, I got very clear on boundaries. So setting boundaries in place. When's a good time frame for people to come and visit, especially if you have, 2 or more children. If you have a toddler that naps and a new baby at home, that might be your nap time. That's what I often advise families to do. Take that period when the baby goes to bed and falls asleep at night. You do have to sort of force yourself to try and wind down, maybe have that little bit of a relaxation time and get some sleep in there when the nights are unpredictable.
Wow. So in the first 8 weeks of life, there might be a point to be made that the parents are going to bed at 8 o'clock. Maybe they're reading a book for an hour or so, but they're literally going to bed a lot earlier because they know that their nighttime sleep will be interrupted.
Yes, exactly. And I've had some clients just enlist in having that house cleaner come in if family's not nearby, or asking a good friend. A lot of friends want to help, but I can't, a lot of us want to take on everything ourselves, feel like we're Wonder Woman and be able to do it all as mothers. We simply don't have to. And I always say it's empowering to be able to say, yes, I need some help. I'm going to take it. And, you can repay the favor later on to them in some way.
Well, and I think that's such a key to all of life. So many of us are counter-dependent. We're these people that feel like we don't need anybody. We can do it all. We can take it all on. But we're really doing a disservice to the people who are literally saying, we'd like to help. And it doesn't even need to be repaid. It's like that the payment is us letting them be with our baby.
Exactly. A lot of people will love to hold a baby. I don't have babies anymore. When I do house visits, I love holding the baby, right? And you can just see, and I remember that feeling like, take the baby, I want to fold the laundry. So I have to do something else that doesn't mean my arms are full. So there's so much that you can do, and I think asking help it's a huge one, and even from our partners. Right? Because I get on the phone, oftentimes it's with mom, and they're in tears, but also feel like they can't ask their partner for help because they're working all day. Mm-hmm. But so are moms at our home, and sometimes it's dads too. I do know I get a lot of calls from dads, but so and they love to help, right? Like our partner wants to help us. So that's how they can feel useful too, with contributing to having a new baby at home, right? Where sometimes the new baby tends to be, feeding all the time, and might be with that one parent as opposed to the other that's out working. So.
And let's not forget the single parents that are out there, like you say, then leverage the mother, the aunt, the sister, the grandparent, leverage the people in your life, in your community, your friends that really are there saying, we know how hard this is, or we can see how hard this is, and we want to help. So really just asking for the help and receiving the help when it's offered. I think that's really key.
Absolutely. And I think just moving in through the ages as well, you want to make sure most children should be getting 11 to 13 hours of sleep at night until approximately, 6-7 years of age. Sometimes that becomes closer to 10 or 11 hours. So it doesn't change that much in those early years. And then naps change quite frequently within that first year. So really moving from 4 naps to 3 naps around 5 months to a 2 nap schedule closer to 6 months or shortly after, and then to a 1 nap schedule. But the hours do not change really throughout the night.
And is every child different when it comes to napping? Again, I hear from a lot of parents that will say, my kid never napped, refused to nap. Is it the same idea that we create rituals and routines for nap time, just like we do for nighttime, that will help them then to have naps?
Yes, absolutely. Just a shortened bedtime routine. Again, just making sure that it's happening in the room where sleep is taking place. A story, diaper change, right before going into their crib. Doing these routines in the same order every night offers that predictability. And again, it acts as a cue to the child's brain that what the next step is. So they become very familiar with these routines.
Are naps necessary?
Yes, I love naps. I'm a big fan of naps, even for adults. Again, we can try to sort of get through our to-do list and hurry through the day and not take that time. But by taking, if you're able to, a lot of my clients do have a day or two where they might work from home. And when time permits, or when you sort of put it into your schedule, taking that 20-minute nap. Again, if you're typically going to bed somewhere around 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, you can do it before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That just allows you to recharge, allows you to come back more focused and have more energy, feeling like you want to do exercise at some point during the day. Go back to that meeting more refreshed. If you are at a desk and you can't take a nap at your workplace, then, doing some meditation. There's meditations, an app I love called Breathe, where you can do, a 3-minute meditation while it's not, it's more a on the move meditation, but just that mindfulness, while you're in the car and you're transitioning to a different part of your day, especially. So, and, a lot of people don't want to do meditation at first, but it does become a part of the day that most of my clients enjoy the most and look forward to. Again, it's just getting into that habit. It's like anything, eating healthy. It doesn't always feel comfortable at first, but then all of a sudden your body craves it.
Any employers watching right now, please take heed. I wish I worked in a company when I was 27 years old, and I started researching the benefits of napping during the day to boost productivity, because I kept noticing at 27 years of age, I kept noticing that every time we'd all come back from our lunch, all of a sudden our productivity just went down and down and down. And I remember saying to my boss, I know that it's not looked, I know it's frowned upon to nap at work, but I feel like more and more in the future, companies are going to get on board with the power of this and leverage the refreshed employee, in ways that we're just not used to. We look at napping as lazy or sleeping as underproductive. We think that we always need to be available. We're always on. 10 o'clock at night, the phone goes, we're answering emails. We really need to get back to, resting and digesting, and sleep is just such a powerful part of our health and our productivity and our energy and the way that we're able to be in our work and in our work lives. I just think the world would be such a different place. And I'm so happy for people like you doing this work, and Arianna Huffington really highlighting the issue in her book Thrive, really talking about burnout's a real thing. And if we want to keep pretending that we don't need to sleep, if we want to keep pretending we are not animals that require rest in order to repair and to rejuvenate, then go ahead. But you're going to find yourself, with a bloody face falling on the ground after passing out because of burnout. So go ahead and do that if you want to. So I'm really glad that we're just really highlighting the importance of it. And again, I hope any employers watching, you start to think, maybe we can start adding, if not a nap time, which I know some businesses do. If not that, then just this chance for people to sit quietly at their desks and not to be sort of knocking on the door like, what the heck, what are you doing? You're not working. right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And so, yeah, I'm seeing it more and more that we're moving away from using it, lack of sleep as a badge of honor, right? But I'm always sort of listening to what people are talking about. And very oftentimes it's, oh, how are you? You run into somebody and, oh, I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. I have this, 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 and this, and I did this, 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 and this. But, and that's sort of that conversation that you often will hear. But we can be our own worst enemy for sure. Right.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
So let's talk now. Let's work into, so we've talked about babies, and then so now 11 to 13 hours per night of sleep for our toddlers, plus napping during the day. And then we wean off of the naps to 1 nap per day. At what age? And then around what age? And then when do we get rid of all the naps?
Okay, so around 13, 14 months is the average age that a baby will go down to 1 nap. And that will continue till approximately 3 years of age, give or take. So very few children I have worked with have, completely eliminated that nap in the second year. Often, sometimes you're forced to because now we have those full days of school in Ontario. So most of my clients will sort of say, okay, I'm worried about them going to kindergarten, but they have nap time, and children, it does amaze me actually that some children will just go ahead and nap in a noisier room than at home. And yeah, so around 5 years of age, I think most children are completely done with that nap when sleep is happening well at night.
So from 5 years old, now they're in school, now it becomes crystal clear that between 5 and the time that they become teens, that it's really all about that nighttime routine. That has to get locked down. Otherwise, they're really not going to get, if they're just coming off that one extra nap, that makes a big difference when they eliminate that nap. So now it's really the quality of that nighttime sleep has to be there. So the quiet room, a cool room, like what are some strategies that we can have for making sure that we create that really positive sleep experience for our 5-year-olds to 11-year-olds?
And this is a lot of like around 3 and up is where you can see children. And I say, like, I'm a parent too. It happens to me. You have to maintain those boundaries, right? Where I want to go to bed later, or sort of the delay tactics. So you always have to, like anything in parenting, you always have to be on guard, and education is huge. Why sleep is important. Just like talking about healthy eating too, right? Why we eat vegetables, why those foods make us feel better, agree with our stomach better, right? So interesting, my daughter was speaking yesterday, the different signs that her stomach gives her. Sometimes it's a nervous tummy, sometimes it's a tired tummy, sometimes it's this or that, which I thought was really interesting. And how would you describe this? What would the conversation look like with a 5-year-old, let's say, on why they need to sleep? Yeah, so I simply, and I do, when I work with children and families to help a 5-year-old, I want them to be included, because I want to spend some time with them, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. Come show me your bedroom. This is awesome. Did you know, like, we sleep better when it's darker? Sometimes there's a fear of the dark. So I always say, there's the infrared lights, which are better. It doesn't interfere with melatonin, or even a salt lamp can be great in a child's room and looks sort of neat to have. And so we come up with a bedtime routine as well. And even for a child that might be, 8 years old, you can use some different graphics on their bedtime routine, and they love that visual art with the words that they can sort of follow along. And with a 5-year-old as well, they love to just have that paper and say, let you know what's coming next and when the bedtime routine starts. So we can set timers to I find that one-on-one time before bedtime with parents without any distractions, no televisions, no phones, helps eliminate any bedtime battles that might creep in. Usually they're just craving a little bit more attention. So that can help eliminate that. And also I use meditations a lot too, but making sure that a child's not there's lots of visuals with meditations on YouTube or different apps, but you don't want them looking at screens. So just having it away from their face in their room, but there can be some anxiety and different things that come in, fear of the dark. And so someone named Elaine Martin, she's a psychologist who specializes in, these meditations for children, as well as for adults. So they're great sleep meditations. They tell a bedtime story and really help to eliminate fears, especially because you can really see a lot of that. But
tell us her name again and where we find her.
Yes, Elaine Martin. And so she has a YouTube link, and you can find lots of creative, different sleep meditations. Yeah.
Excellent. So now we're moving into the tween and the teen years. Obviously, if we have kids that have been set up with a positive routine, it might be a little easier to transition into these years. What if we are parents who we've never really developed a really powerful routine? We're just coming to this conversation now, and we've got tweens and teens at home, and we're kind of like, well, how do we begin this now?
Yeah. So I often have the parents will come to me and say, my teen's not sleeping. So my first go-to is let me speak with them, right? Let me see if they're feeling the struggle as much as you're seeing it. Because sometimes having that third person can be helpful. Or just having the family sit down with their tween or teen and talking about, where they're seeing, sleep and talking about the health benefits. And there's also a lot of evening activities that take place, and homework gets late, and a lot of homework can be done on devices, but there's lots of different ways that we can work through that as well, to eliminate blue light leading up to bedtime. But I think the conversation starts, and also leading by example. So if you notice, okay, we always want the best for our child, but the best for our child is leading by example, so that we're also walking the walk, just talking the talk, right? So yeah, I find, and that can be so beneficial for every individual family member, but the family as a unit. And then just to see your child, that you're sort of walking alongside them through that process.
Oh, I love that. It feels, kids don't listen, they watch. Right? They watch what
Absolutely. We're doing. I went into a school, I was speaking with a group of grade 7 and 8s, and 3/4 of the room, and I was so impressed with how honest they were. But we were talking about, the question came up, do you sleep with a device in your room? And the second question was, how many of you are responding to social media messages or text messages? And 3/4 of the students raised their hand. And the students and also the teachers. So, which made me very emotional at the time, because I was shocked by the response. I went into a second school, same group, age group, the same outcome, but 3/4 of the room raising their hands. And I was impressed for the teachers for being so honest as well, because it really showed. And 3 of the students, it was a huge room, but 3 of them came up to me and said they were taking their devices out of the room that night. That they just simply didn't know. They weren't aware, right? And
weren't aware of the negative health impact.
Yeah, and especially with social media. So, there's so much mental health that awareness now, and that we're talking about it, which is fantastic. But often it can come through social media. And so, like we were talking about limits and boundaries, and really guiding our children navigating through social media. So we can't ignore it. It's going to be part of their life, but helping them through it. So that's, they don't come home and turn the social aspect of the day off. It's on social media. So it's with them like a lot more frequently in a 24-hour period than it is in comparison to when we were children, right? So we just sort of go home and, talk through how the day went, but for them, they're still tapped in to their devices.
Yeah. And so is your suggestion for our tweens and teens, like, let's talk about the health benefits of sleep. And then let's talk about these strategies of not having things like devices in the bedroom at nighttime, where kids can then be awoken by a text or some type of social media notification. so that they're improving their sleep. So let's first talk about, give us the rundown of the top health benefits of getting our proper sleep. Like, why do kids even care to get good sleep?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because for me, like as a sleep coach and as a mom, I see like, okay, like the social media is huge, the mental health piece, but for them, they're like, that's, you know, that's not a factor. But talking about melatonin, talking about blue light, talking about how it's interrupting their sleep and not having consolidated sleep throughout the night, that's the piece that they tend to hear. So it's sort of like, you know, how they move throughout the day, how they get exercise, healthy eating and stuff. They're more aware of that. Energy drinks too. So what they're consuming, a lot of them don't realize like that caffeine that it's even present in the drink, but that it's staying in. I know, right? I'm sure you could go on. And
Energy drinks make me crazy. And
yeah,
I walk an hour every day, and we walk near a grocery store, and we see all of these teenagers going back to high school with these huge energy drinks with 40 grams of sugar and caffeine in them. And it's like 2 p.m.
Exactly. And I'm sure, you know, I'm sure they're present in the evening as well, right? So yeah, it's just, it does. And so how that impacts their sleep, they have no idea. So really just talking about how it's affecting their health specifically and how consolidated sleep is going to allow them to retain their focus, their, you know, and their memory, allow them to perform better in physical activities, prepare for that exam, all those things. So that is the piece that speaks to them.
Yeah, and I love that you can really speak to all of those, you know, you can talk about the health benefits depending on the stage of life in an area that really is impactful to them, because this whole social media piece, this whole, you know, drinking of the energy drinks thing, like these are things that the teens are doing. So now they're understanding that there is a consequence to everything that they are doing, and you're putting the power into their hands, which is what I think we want as teenagers. We don't want to be spoken to as babies, but we do need the information, because, you know, as much as we think we know everything when we're 15 and 16 years old, there's a little more that there is to learn. So I think it's really, it's awesome the way that you, the way in that you use with either parents of newborns, if that's who we're working with, or with teenagers, if that's who we're working with, or with adults, if that's who you're working with.
And then just pointing out too, where I think as a parent, where you're struggling maybe with your sleep as well, and what you're working on to make things better for yourself, so that you're doing it together. So we talked about that already, but I think that is huge.
So how many hours a night do teens need to get?
Yes, so some will need as little as 8. Some will often about 10 hours of sleep.
And how do they know? How will a teenager wake up feeling if they are rested and if they've gotten enough? Like it must be kind of a tricky thing to figure out. How do we know if we've had enough? How do we know if we wake up and like, this is as good as we're supposed to feel? Or, you know, it's hard to measure.
And also there's a hormone shift too, right, for them. So naturally their body's more prepared for sleep 2 hours later, but we can't help school start times and things like that. So again, I've found by having that bedtime routine in place most nights, like they're not going to be able to do it perfectly every night, but if they can do it 4 or 5 nights out of the week as opposed to none, they're still, you know, making improvements. There's still those nights where they go to bed a little bit later. Their body will still sleep better because they've honored their sleep in a previous night.
And what would be an example of a nighttime routine for a teenager?
Yeah, so they love meditations. Like Headspace is a really popular app that they will use. It's sort of a neat little app. There's lots of different options on it, and it's a pretty cool app. And so I notice a lot of them sort of go towards that when I make suggestions of different ones. And yeah, so meditation, reading. And I always encourage reading out of a book of some sort. Some of them like to listen to music too, right? So, you know, if that's a way that they relax, I've had some, but they won't willingly share amongst friends that they enjoy having like a bath, like an Epsom salt bath. So if they're an athlete, I've had a couple male teens, they're like a bath or a shower right before bed. So just similar ways that we relax, sometimes just stretching too. Yeah.
Now, some of the suggestions you've mentioned, so the meditation and the music, that would require bringing devices into the room. How do we manage that?
Yes. So some, I'll just say, because I know, again, like you said, you can put it on the charger, it might sneak back in, placing it in a drawer as a first step, right? So it's not when you wake up, that's the first thing you see and think about and start looking at in the morning or in the nighttime. Or just having a place where everyone in the family puts it in the kitchen and making sure that it does stay there, right? I think, again, we have to say we are the parents and these are sort of, the parameters that are in place in our home.
So maybe we were talking about having the charging station where all the phones go. And then I've had parents that say to me, and then when I'm asleep and at 11:30, my child goes and gets their phone. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And I think then it's just talking about the commitment, right? Like, what are you being committed to and who is it for? So there's always going to be challenges and bumps. And so that's something as a sleep specialist, again, before I start working with the teen, if the family's speaking with them and they have a conversation with me, we talk a lot about like the importance and why they're doing it. Like, why is sleep so important to you? What changes are how is your life going to feel better? What does it mean to have the phone out of the room? Right? Like what are the benefits for that for you and why are you doing it? Because if you're not going to do it, then you're not going to see the benefits of your sleep change. Yeah.
Man, so like with everything, I think in life, communication is where it's at.
Yes, for sure.
All right. So teens need a little, 8 hours as a minimum. And obviously, again, most schools don't allow nap time. So they're probably not having a chance to nap in the day.
And making sure they feel rested when they wake up, right? So if you're waking up rested, you're not waking up to the alarm. That's when anyone knows that they've had enough sleep.
Yeah. Oh, and it feels so good. Have a good night's sleep. You feel like a totally different person.
I know. I picture like Sleeping Beauty or Cinderella, right? Waking up and stretching their arms. That's how it feels.
I put on way more makeup when I haven't had as good restful night's sleep. It's the easiest beauty, product out there going is added sleep. Making sure we get enough. We feel so much better. We look so much better. We're so much more energized and we're able to be in the world in the way that we really want to be. No one wants to be dragging their butt around everywhere.
No, absolutely not. No, it's not a good feeling. I always say it can be a beautiful sunny day. And if you are sleep deprived, it feels like the worst.
It feels like the worst. And again, I think that it's just really perpetuated by a lot of people in our media and in our workplaces and just in our culture in general, people saying, sleep when you're dead. I only need 4 hours. If I get more than 4 hours, I feel groggy. And it's like, I get it that we're all individuals, but I think that there's still, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still not even understanding all of what happens when we sleep or why we sleep. But we do know that for all of us, and especially, teenagers and then into adulthood, we're detoxifying the brain as we sleep. We're getting into that deep REM sleep that allows us to wake up refreshed. We're allowing ourselves to go through these sleep cycles of, I understand they're 90 minutes in length and we go through several of them in a night. And
the REM sleep happens in the second half of the night, right? The majority of that. So when people are only getting 4 to 6 hours, you're missing out on good quality sleep in that second half of the evening.
And what's the deal with going to bed before midnight? I've heard that if we can get to sleep before midnight, it's worth double if we go to bed after midnight. And of course, we have to understand and respect that some shift workers, my cousin's a surgeon, a doctor in the ER. This is just not, a sleep routine he can create, but it's not going to be at the same time every day. And that's a struggle for people that work shift work, and we understand that. But for everybody else who's able to go to bed before midnight, is that true that it's more valuable?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the earlier the better. So it's, when I'm working with people and a lot of people are going to bed at midnight, and they're crashing and then they're waking up, right? And it's like, because you crash, like you don't want to actually crash and fall asleep in a second. Your body should take 10 to 15 minutes to wind down and settle into sleep. So always the better quality sleep is at the front end. And yeah, you're just missing out on those important sleep cycles. Then your body's busy trying to catch up after midnight on anything that's been missed ahead of time. So if we were talking about Matthew Walker, who talks about why sleep, and so he has a wealth of information in that book, and he talks about, how the sleep cycles are, so there's no set pattern, right? Except that we do know REM is in the second half, and then some of the lighter stages of sleep happen more often in the first half. But yeah, you can't track a specific pattern if you're not getting all the sleep that you need, which again, what time is your day starting if you're following a typical work schedule? If you go to bed at midnight, we often have to start our day at 6 or 7, so you're just not meeting all the hours of sleep that you need. And then biologically, it goes against how we're designed. So shift work, again, like you mentioned, is a struggle there, but there's still so many ways that you can manage shift work to make sleep happen at its best, for sure.
And talk about going back ancestrally. We would have woken with the sun and gone to bed when it got dark. And in the winter, yes, that means more rest. And I find that when I am more apt to connect with the seasons and with the amount of light that's available, I just tend to feel better. So in general, in the wintertime, I tend to go to bed earlier just because I don't want to spend so many hours in front of television or in my screen or with lights on. Like I'd rather sort of go to get ready for bed, 9 o'clock. It feels kind of like, okay, this is a nice time. Whereas in the summertime, it's still light out at 9 o'clock. Like I might still be riding my bike at 9 o'clock at night. Right? It's, what do you feel about that sort of going with nature in a way?
Yeah, it's sort of like, a lot of people might get concerned as well. I'm not a nutrition expert, but about, feeling like they want different types of food and foods have seasons too. So I find, your body does sort of naturally crave. It doesn't mean that we have to go for cake or all the other things, but with sleep, it can be a little bit trickier, but I find, we do tend to almost like hibernate, right? A little bit more. But our daily schedule tends to stay the same. So I think, again, just working on having proper sleep, hygiene in place is huge, especially in the summer, right? So we still need to start our day at the same time. So having like room darkening shades in place as well, so that we can really get all the hours of sleep that we need. We might have to work a little bit harder against the seasons during that time. And during the winter, I think I do feel that it's normal, like to listen to your body, what it's asking for. I really love to exercise and really push myself hard, but if you're not honoring sleep, I did my first marathon last May.
Congratulations.
And I didn't realize it was awesome. It was such a great, like I said, the journey was amazing. I loved every moment of it. It was hard, but such a huge piece. It just showed I had to take naps. I had to get to bed early. Like there was no way around that for my body to repair, to even digest food properly. Like I was eating pretty healthy, but nothing would digest well if I didn't honor that sleep, even for one night. So you just can't fight against that. You just have to listen to your body. My clients, when they have, some downtime in the evening, I'll say, okay, this is the night that you're going to build in a relaxing activity to do. And they say, okay, well, I sort of felt tired before my bedtime, like before the scheduled time, like that's go, right? That's when your body's asking you to get yourself to bed. It's naturally winding down. You're starting to tune into what those cues are, which is it's your body speaking to you. So that's great. You just might have to go to bed early. It's probably trying to catch up in some way, and you'll probably have a better night's sleep if you go to bed earlier. So there's always that fear, if I go to bed at 9, I'm going to wake up at like 4 or 5. That's simply not true. So by catching yourself when you feel tired, you will sleep longer into the morning and probably wake up at the exact same time or a little bit later even.
Oh, that's so good to know, because I know a lot of people who travel a lot, they will refuse to go to sleep because they're really making sure that they sort of assimilate into the new time zone. When you were speaking, it made me think of that. So what is your suggestion for people going into a different time zone? Do we adopt the new one, or do we listen to the body? And if I'm exhausted because I've been traveling all day, do I go to bed?
Yes. I do. It depends on the time zone change. So a couple hours, usually with 1 or 2 days, you'll be in line with the new time zone. I try to encourage clients to, really pay attention to the daylight, the natural daylight that's out there. So in the afternoon, depending, again, it depends on when you arrive to your destination, but generally using light to your advantage, getting outside in the afternoon to sort of stimulate you, make you feel more awake, and then in the evening, winding down, making sure things are becoming darker. Again, just doing a wind down activity and trying to get in line with the new time. And then when you're traveling like quite a distance, a lot of people just want to make the most of their holiday. So it depends on how long you are going to be there for. So if you have time to sort of get in line with the new time, that's great, but often we don't. So I just say you have to allow your body some time to sort of transition. That's a time, when properly guided by like a naturopath or someone that knows like melatonin or natural products, that can be helpful, but it has to be properly guided by somebody that is an expert. I'm not, but I know people that I refer people to when they're traveling quite often to sort of assist with jet lag if it's happening frequently.
So you would
sometimes
recommend...
we need a little bit of help, but often there's things that we can do on our own to assist with that. And melatonin is not something that's another whole topic, but that it doesn't work solely on its own, right? You need to still make the lifestyle adjustments with that.
And I think that if I'm hearing you correctly, using melatonin, which is we produce it naturally. This is something that you can take to assist along with lifestyle strategies. The point is that we want to be getting away from drugs and medications that
yes, exactly. So, so using light, using darkness, and then just giving your body, realizing that you might wake up a little bit earlier, but just trying to, have meals at the regular times as it is in the new place, things like that. That's what's going to cue your body. Like if you have lunch at the normal time that they do, when you arrive at your destination, that's going to sort of speak to your body again that there's a shift going on, and that time change will adapt along with it. But you may need a midday nap, maybe not 20 minutes, but like it might be an hour or two depending on when you arrive to sort of catch up so that you feel energized enough, and you'll probably still be able to fall asleep at that bedtime. So it does depend on what time zone change you're working with, but typically 1 hour time zone change takes approximately a day to adjust.
That's right. Yeah. 2 hours of a time zone change, 2 days to adjust.
Yes,
4 hours in a change, 4 days. Oh my goodness. So sometimes, like you say, you go on the vacation and you won't have even caught up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. And then you just have to, once you return, I always call it a boot camp week, where you get back to your routines with anything and get yourself feeling good again so that you're in line with the regular time.
So obviously we've moved into adult sleep and all of the, the things that we can do there. And I just think it's so important. We keep using the words, both of us keep saying it, just listen to our body. And it's funny that we can say the word just as if it's like the easiest thing in the world, when we don't want to listen to our body. We want to stay up and watch The Bachelor. We want to stay up and eat ice cream and cookies. We want to go to that late night, that 9 o'clock at night exercise class, or 8 o'clock at night, because it's the only time we can get it in.
Yes.
We want to spend that time with our partner because we haven't seen them all day and they don't get home until 7:30. So to go to bed at 9 just feels like absolutely not fair. And it's funny how often I'll say to my students, where I'll say, you're giving yourself this huge gift. And I know it feels like it's not what you want to do, but sometimes we need to separate the you from the body and remember that in the morning, your body will repay you so well for that extra gift that you gave it, the healthy food, the glass of water, the meditation, the extra sleep, whatever the gift is that we're giving. Sometimes we need to make that separation a little bit to be able to make the choices that are hard. We don't want
to yourself, and you're giving it to your relationship too, I believe. And then, it's funny how that's, by watching someone honor their own sleep, then, I see shifts always in a relationship. Spouse might come home a little bit earlier some nights, right? So that you get that time together. Or I always say, if you're doing this 6 nights out of the week and you want to go to the movies or you're on a date, right? Just realizing like that's a treat, but it's not every night then, not a ritual that happens all the time. And is the 9 o'clock class truly the only one? Or is there something else we can do? So often there are other options. We just have to be willing to sort of explore what they are.
I really love that. It makes me feel like such a grown-up when I take control of the areas of my life that feel like work, that feel like I'm having to do these things, but then I get the huge benefit of the benefit after the workout, the benefit after I eat that, a highly nutritious meal, the benefit after I get 8 hours of restorative sleep, right? Like in the moment, we might not want to make those choices, but it makes such a difference. And like you say, in that routine, to create that routine, because we're not what we do once in a while. We are what we do over and over and over consistently. So if we can get into a really good consistent habit of healthy restorative sleep, the once in a while, we will first of all really notice the difference. And I think it'll really help to remind us to get back into our routine. But also it's no biggie if we have one night out of the week where we go on that late date and we are tired the next day. But it's what we do consistently over time. And again, when we talked in the beginning, then we're able to model to our children what it is that's healthy and restorative for them as well. So I think it's just awesome what you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you do this work. We didn't really touch on snoring, and I know I'm at the top of the next hour, but let's talk about snoring. What if I sleep really well, but I am with a partner who has come into my life or who has developed a habit of snoring? What do we do then?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one that I come up with all the time. Sometimes I do have my clients invest in some earplugs too, because or see if you can speak to your partners. Often it's when they're on their back as well. If they can sort of shift a position, because typically then we see the snoring. Sometimes it can be a sign of sleep apnea. Again, I know you spoke with Andrew Holmes, so I'm sure he had a wealth of information to say about that. But if it's happening really, really loudly, then that could be a sign to, maybe have that checked out as well. But I have some couples that just simply say, it's so disruptive, I have to sleep in a separate room, and that's how we make it work. So there's options with that. And something I have done, it doesn't happen frequently between my husband and I, but every once in a while, I'll just sort of gently tap if he is. And I do ask him to just shift like his position, right? And problem solved.
It's so funny. It's funny that you say that, because we feel, so Roger is a very quiet sleeper, but every once in a while he'll snore. And sometimes I would feel guilty moving him because I'm thinking he must be sleeping so deeply that he's snoring. And yet he would say to me, when I'd say to him, you were really snoring a lot last night, and he's like, nudge me, tell me not to, because obviously I'm not sleeping well if I'm snoring. So now I do. I give him a little nudge. He turns over. He stops snoring. Is it true that we are not sleeping well if we are snoring?
Oh, well, you know what? I don't find that to be true at all. But I don't have the research to back it up, but I don't, and what I've looked at and what I've learned is that it's not impacting the quality of our sleep. Of course, like I said, sleep apnea, absolutely, it's a major health issue. So
it's really just affecting the quality of your partner's sleep.
Yes, exactly. It's usually for our partner. and we've joked about that as well. Like, why did you nudge me? Because I was sleeping so well, I wouldn't do, and I said in that situation, definitely nudge me, because it often is just lying on the back that's again, the clients that I hear, it's problem solved once we have them shift position.
So you've touched on it a little bit, and I think this is a great place to kind of finish off. Is there a perfect position for adults to be sleeping in to maximize our quality of sleep every night?
Yes. So yeah, I find everybody feels comfortable in their own position. Some people will say, on your left side is right, that I've heard other studies say on your right side is the right way. So I find it's just what's comfortable for you. And I see it with babies too. Some are tummy sleepers, some are back sleepers, some will sort of roll onto their side. So yeah, as long as you're feeling rested, you're not waking up in the night with hours on end, you're not having trouble falling asleep. Those are the common problems that I see. You're not dependent on that alarm every morning, and you're comfortable sleeping whichever position that you are, then that's great.
That is so encouraging. I am somebody who I believed that sleeping on my right side with a pillow between my knees so that I'm in alignment with a really good pillow. I thought that was the proper way to sleep. And I was thinking that was the right way, but I'm really encouraged to hear that people who prefer to sleep on their back or on their tummy or on the other side, they can also get equally as good sleep. They don't have to try to train themselves into sleeping into this.
Yeah, I think so. And personally, I believe sometimes we can put so much pressure on ourselves to do everything perfectly, and that sort of can have a lot of people as well. Some people are sleep deprived, and some people just want to get everything right all the time with everything they do. And so sometimes part of the training is you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be rested. But how to honor their sleep and their routines. But yeah, the telltale signs are how do you feel throughout the day? How do you feel when you wake up in the morning? So yeah, and if you're doing all the right things, and that's a piece that you're not feeling totally comfortable one way. And some people have pain too, right? So sometimes I have to pull in some other experts to help with the pain management as well, with an area that suits that client. So that's a piece that we look at too. And sometimes it's just me saying to them, have you explored these different avenues to assist with, if they're not eating properly and they're having a big, heavy or sugary meal, and that's a hard habit to change, have you heard of Sarah, right? So someone that can assist with that, that's an expert in that. So there's lots of different pieces that we can pull in when we're thinking about sleep. As you mentioned, it's just sort of you're in to creating like change with sleep that then creates change in nutrition or change in, they start exercising again, right? Sleep, they have some energy. Okay, I'm going to, start walking. It doesn't have to be huge. It's like, what do you enjoy? How do you want to move your body? Sometimes it's just stretching is the start. It doesn't have to be getting a gym membership always. But yeah, so what's your in, and then slowly build on that towards better health and then a better life as well.
Oh, I think that's the perfect place to end. Thank you so much, Diane, for being with us today. I have learned a ton. I love your passion. I love your message. And I love that point that we are not meant to be perfect. We're meant to be whole, as our lovely Jane Fonda shared with us years ago. And I just love that line. And it really rings true here that sleep, it's not about being perfect with it, but it really is about prioritizing it if we want to live our best lives. So thank you so much for walking us through the ages with our sleep.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. So much fun.
Thanks, Diane. You can connect with sleep specialist Diane Dauphinais at soundofsleep.ca or on Facebook at Sound of Sleep.